In 1990, Wall Street made Bernie Madoff its chairman of the NASDAQ stock market. He'd helped fund its parent regulator, the National Association of Securities Dealers. He sat on the SEC committee that wrote the payment for the order flow rules, a practice he helped invent. Up to 10% of New York Stock Exchange volume crossed his desk on a normal day. Regulators called him to ask how the market worked. For at least 13 years, by the federal trustees' sworn finding, he had not bought a single share of stock for his investment clients. Not one. He was born Bernard Lawrence Madoff in Brooklyn on April 29, 1938, the son of a plumber turned stockbroker. He took a political science degree at Hofstra in 1960. He had married Ruth Alpern the year before on November 28, 1959. In 1960, with $5,000 saved from installing lawn sprinklers and working as a Long Island lifeguard and a $50,000 loan from his father-in-law, Sol Alpern, he founded Bernard L. Madoff Investment Securities. His brother Peter joined as chief compliance officer in 1969. Sons Mark, born 1964, and Andrew, born 1966. By the 1980s, the firm occupied 3 floors of the Lipstick Building at 885 3rd Avenue in Manhattan. Floors 18 and 19 ran a legitimate market-making operation. Floor 17 did not exist on any client document. The product he sold was called the Split Strike Conversion Strategy. Buy a basket of S&P 100 stocks, hedge with index options, collect a steady 10 to 12% a year regardless of the market. No losing quarters, no drawdowns, no bad years. He did not advertise. He did not cold call. The accounts came to him. Country club referrals in Palm Beach, synagogue referrals on Long Island, Yeshiva University, the Cy Sims School of Business, Elie Wiesel, the Wilpons, the New York Mets, charity boards in Boca Raton and the Catskills. Inside those circles, an unspoken rule held: you did not talk about your Madoff account at the dinner table. If everybody asked, the door would close. This is the part that mattered. Every credential he had earned was visible. Chairman of NASDAQ, NASD Board of Governors, participant in the Depository Trust and Clearing Corporation, the SEC committee that wrote the payment for order flow rules. His brother Peter was chief compliance officer. His sons Mark and Andrew ran the legitimate market-making side of the floors above. His niece, Shanna, the firm's compliance attorney, married a former SEC assistant director named Eric Swanson. When elite investors looked at the structure, their critical thinking turned off. A man whose name was on the NASDAQ board could not be a thief. The credentials he'd earned on the 18th floor, he was already weaponizing on the 17th. Floor 17 of the Lipstick Building was 19,270 square feet. Fewer than 24 people worked there. The man running it was Frank DePascali. He had joined the firm in 1975 at the age of 18, straight out of Archbishop Malloy High School in Queens. He had no college degree. He self-titled himself Director of Options Trading and Chief Financial Officer of an investment advisory business that managed $65 billion on paper. The trading floor had a mainframe IBM AS/400. The staff called it House 17. House 17 had no live market feed. It had no counterparties. It had no broker. Every trade was entered by hand. They used yesterday's prices copied out of the back pages of the Wall Street Journal. They picked the basket. They picked the return. They printed the confirmations. Annette Bongiorno, Jerome O'Hara, George Perez. 218 separate computer programs written for the express purpose of generating fictitious trades. When SEC examiners came to inspect the books, the staff produced freshly printed records that had been stuffed into a refrigerator for an hour and tossed around the office like a football so the paper looked aged. House 17, yesterday's prices, not one trade, and David Kugel, a Madoff trader since 1970, testified at the Madoff 5 trial that the fake trade machine had been running since the 1970s, 3 decades before any prosecutor admitted it. The trustee Irving Picard reconstructed the books after the collapse. 40,930 claimants in 127 countries. Charities, pension funds, retirees, working families. Elie Wiesel and Marianne Wiesel personally lost their entire life savings. The Elie Wiesel Foundation for Humanity lost $15.2 million more. Wiesel later said that it was as if everything he had built in 40 years, all his books, all his lectures, all of it was gone. In Salem, Massachusetts, the Robert I. Lappin Charitable Foundation had $8 million with Madoff. It sent Jewish teenagers to Israel every summer. On December 12, 2008, the day after Bernie Madoff was arrested, the foundation closed its doors. 7 staff were laid off. Their own retirement accounts were also invested with Madoff. Madoff stole twice from the same 7 people. Maureen Abel was 60 years old, a widowed retired nurse in West Goshen, Pennsylvania. She had $7.3 million with Madoff. 6 days after the arrest, she went to work cleaning the house of a 93-year-old neighbor. She vacuumed, she ironed. Cheryl Weinstein, former chief financial officer of Hadassah, stood in court at his sentencing and described him in one sentence. Underneath the facade, she said, is a true beast. Harry Markopolos was a portfolio manager at Rampart Investment Management in Boston. His boss handed him Madoff's reported returns and asked him to replicate the strategy. In 4 hours, Markopolos concluded the math was impossible. 174 consecutive months of returns, only 7 losing months. The S&P 100 had 28. The correlation of Madoff's returns to his own benchmark was 0.06, effectively zero. On November 7th, 2005, Markopolos filed a 19-page memo with the Securities and Exchange Commission titled "The World's Largest Hedge Fund is a Fraud." 29 red flags. It was the 3rd version of a complaint he had been filing since 2000. The SEC ignored every one. On May 19, 2006, examiners sat across from Madoff and asked him for his account number at the Depository Trust Company. He gave it to them. The account held under $24 million in equities. Customer statements that month showed billions. A single phone call would have ended it. The SEC walked out of the building. Madoff later told the Inspector General, "I thought it was the end game. Monday morning they would call DTC and this would be over." And it never happened. I was astonished. By the fall of 2008, redemption requests had reached $7 billion. The firm did not have $7 billion. The firm did not have any of the money. On Wednesday, December 10th, Madoff hosted the firm's Christmas lunch and handed out early bonuses. That afternoon, Mark and Andrew confronted him about the timing. He told them, "Let's go to the apartment." At the duplex penthouse at 133 East 64th Street, in front of his wife Ruth and his 2 sons, Bernie Madoff said it. The asset management business was one big lie. He was running a Ponzi scheme, and he was out of money. The sons left that night and called the family attorney, who called the FBI. The next morning, just before 8:30 a.m. on December 11th, Special Agent Theodore Kachiopi rode the elevator up to apartment 12A. Bernie Madoff opened the door in pajamas, a bathrobe, and slippers. Kachiopi told him they were there to find out if there was an innocent explanation. Madoff looked at him and said, "There is no innocent explanation." In his desk drawer at the office that morning, agents found $173 million in pre-signed checks. One was for $8.2 million made out to his brother Peter's wife. On March 12, 2009, Bernie Madoff pleaded guilty to 11 federal felony counts: securities fraud, investment advisor fraud, mail fraud, wire fraud, money laundering, perjury, false filings with the SEC, theft from an employee benefit plan. On June 29, 2009, he stood for sentencing before Judge Denny Chin in the Southern District of New York. His defense asked for 12 years. The probation office recommended 50. 9 victims spoke. Burt Ross, the former mayor of Fort Lee, New Jersey, who had lost $5 million, invoked Dante's Inferno. He said that when Madoff left this earth virtually unmourned, may Satan grow a 4th mouth where Bernard L. Madoff deserved to spend the rest of eternity. Carla Hirschhorn told the court, "Life has been a living hell." Michael Schwartz, whose autistic brother's trust fund had been wiped out, told Madoff he hoped his jail cell would be his coffin. Judge Chin had received 113 victim letters. Not one asked for mercy. Not one attested to Mr. Madoff's good deeds. The absence of such support was telling. He called the crimes extraordinarily evil. He gave Bernie Madoff 150 years. The courtroom applauded. December 11, 2010, the 2nd anniversary of the arrest. Mark Madoff hanged himself with a dog leash in his Soho loft while his 2-year-old son slept in the next room. Andrew Madoff died of lymphoma in 2014. Bernie Madoff died at FMC Butner in 2021. The line between the man Wall Street trusted to write its rules and the engineer of the largest Ponzi scheme in history was erased completely by unimaginable greed.